Hi there, this is Roamin Rich, and you're listening to the Route 66 podcast.
Route 66, Route 66, ride along with the Route 66 podcast. For talks with people living and working along the Mother Road. The main street of America, from Chicago to LA, bore a heavy load. Route 66, Route 66. Sometimes historical paths aren't discovered until they're lost. Ride along with the Route 66 podcast.
Hello and welcome aboard the Route 66 podcast, where talks with people living and working along the Mother Road. I'm your host, Anthony Arno, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today here on our journey. My guest today is Roamin Rich, who's the current president of the Missouri Route 66 Association. He's the one behind those Route 66 shields you see painted on the highway, part owner of the Painted Desert Trading Post Cooperative, and creator of his own YouTube channel, with one particular road video that's on its way to nearly 1 million views. Wow. Well, the Route 66 Scholarship Program has officially opened for the current academic year. Whether you're in grades K through college, awards range from $25 to $500 and are available for those students interested in sharing their interest in Route 66 with my audience. Any creative way a student can think to represent the Mother Road, Route 66, in their own personal way is the spirit of the scholarship program. Examples might include submitting artwork, photographs, crafts, personal interviews, theatrical performances, music, video, or a multimedia presentation using PowerPoint, Prezi, Canva, or Google Slides. Students are encouraged to listen to past episodes of the podcast for ideas and topics that may be of interest to them as a starting point. Students do not need to live along the road, but simply have an interest in promoting Route 66. Hey, even if you're a teacher like myself, this is an excellent opportunity for problem-based learning with your students, whether they're learning remotely or in person. In fact, I've been talking with teachers who teach the Oregon Trail, and why not use Route 66 as a similar activity? Yeah, Route 66. And I would challenge any educator or administrator who disagrees. Just listen to my past episodes to learn exactly what role Highway 66 had during the 20th century in American growth and development. Additional information can be found at route66podcast.com. Good luck to everyone, and please share this opportunity with any students you may know. Let's give special thanks to my current Patreon supporters, including Mary Beth Busatill from Florida, Route 66 author and photographer Shelley Graham, also my guest right here on episode number 10, where she spoke about her book, Tales from the Coral Court Motel, Kristen Hackinson from Washington State, Rich Havlick from Minnesota, Brian Sawyer from Indiana, and the Midpoint Cafe in Adrian, Texas. They're the people who not only support this podcast, but also the Route 66 Scholarship Program. I want to invite you to consider becoming a Patreon supporter, where we have several levels starting at just $1 per month. We have a business level for mention of your business along the road, and for those who pledge at least $10 per month, they'll have voting rights in the annual Route 66 Scholarship Program, and also entered to win Route 66 related material in our monthly drawing. And our winner for this month is Rich Havlick, who has won a Route 66 wall calendar. Congratulations, Rich! And we have one more wall calendar we'll be giving away during the current month of March 2021 to anyone who's a Patreon supporter. In addition, all our Patreon members have not only received this current episode 1 week before being released to everyone else, but also the extended version featuring additional conversations with today's guest, Roamin Rich. Be sure to listen at the end of the show to hear what additional content is being sent to my Patreon supporters. Rich is a huge advocate of Route 66, and he adds additional insight to the highway for Patreon supporters to listen to. All Patreon members at the Will Rogers level and above will also receive a washable Route 66 face mask. Today I want to share with you listener feedback in response to the question, what is your favorite Route 66 book? Here's Maureen Holt.
Route 66 books are Images of 66, volumes 1 and 2 from David Wickline. There's a couple thousand pictures in each one. You just can't beat it for the amount of photography in each one. And they're such, colorful pictures. I don't have any other books that have the amount of pictures that they do. And I can't wait for a third volume of that book.
Thank you, Maureen. Yep, that's one of the books I take with me on my annual trip of Route 66. Maureen has a 2-year virtual challenge taking place where you can walk, run, or bike the entire length of Route 66 in real time at end2end.run. That's end2end.run. For this month, let's make the call-in topic your favorite version of the classic song Route 66. Yep, it was written for Nat King Cole by Bobby Troup, but there's probably well over 100 different versions out there, covered by everyone from Bing Crosby to the Rolling Stones. What's your favorite version? I'll be giving away a free Route 66 washable face mask, like the one Maureen just won, to a random podcast listener who shares with us their favorite version of the Route 66 song. All you have to do is simply visit our website, route66podcast.com, to record your response. Record a short 60-second message about your favorite version of Route 66, and I'll randomly select a winner to receive a washable face mask. Simply visit the Route 66 podcast webpage and click Send Voicemail tab on the right side of the page where you see the microphone. Good luck. And now, here's the trivia question for today's show. On the last episode, I featured Peter McDonald, just one of 5 surviving Navajo code talkers from World War II. Also on that show was a local realtor, Jackie Kellogg, who spoke about the origin of the Navajo code talkers along Route 66. So here's the question. How is Route 66 related to the Navajo code talkers and the efforts to restore the El Pueblo Motel in Flagstaff, Arizona? The answer after today's show. My guest today is from the newer generation of preservationists helping to promote Route 66, as he serves as the president of the Missouri Route 66 Association, has a whole host of YouTube videos on YouTube featuring the Mother Road, including one that is nearing 1 million views, and is also the man behind all the shields you may have seen painted right on the road as you travel down Route 66. Please welcome to the Route 66 podcast, Rich Dinkala, otherwise known as Roamin Rich. Rich, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Thanks, Anthony. Always an honor. Appreciate you reaching out to me.
So I have to start with the question I ask all of my guests. What is your earliest memory of Route 66?
The earliest memory that I can recall of Route 66 would have been about the age of about 4 years old, possibly, when my mom and dad were kind of prospecting properties out in the Ozarks, Branson area, namely. And I can remember driving down Interstate 44, which would have been brand new, pristine at that time through that area, and seeing these little wooden cabins along the road. And that was later turned out to be John's Modern Cabins. And I was totally fascinated with that. Along with also, there was a lingering business from the Route 66 years. So many grape stands in the early 80s lined up the interstates. I mean, they were just everywhere. Now you only see like 2 or 3 grape stands after so many years. It's kind of sad, but those are some of my earliest memories.
Now, your motto is go your own way. What is the meaning behind that, Rich?
it's the simplest way I can embody my persona. I'm a libertarian. I'm a nonconformist. I'm a don't tread on me type of person, and I definitely won't tread on you. I think everyone has a right to live their life the way they want to and should, so long as it doesn't trespass on others. And it just really describes me in the simplest way possible. I like to go and be spontaneous and random and just do things in the moment as I see fit, so long as I'm not bothering anybody else.
I love it. I love it. Now, I've always known you as Roamin Rich. I didn't know your last name up until recently. How did you get the Roamin Rich nickname?
That was appointed to me by a friend of mine who's also a very iconic roadie on Route 66, Ken Termel, a.k.a. the Land Runner. He gave me that name back in 2010 because only a couple people knew about me running up and down the road painting Route 66 shields. And he was one of the guys that knew about it and actually encouraged me during the festival that took place in Amarillo to get out in the middle of 6th Street and paint a shield. And I made the front page, and I got a photo someplace of 2 police officers riding right past me on motorcycles as I'm spray painting, maybe vandalizing the road there. But he, at the time I was kind of looking for some sort of a brand, something besides my name. And he's like, I like Roamin Rich. You should go by that. And I said, man, Ken, I think you're right. That sounds great.
How many shields would you say you've painted on the road?
It's probably only about 100. I haven't done them all.
Okay.
I don't want to discredit people. There's people out in California that have done them. There's people in various parts of Illinois and Kansas and Missouri that have done them, Arizona. But I've done a bunch, and I've had my hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, as a resource from different places that have purchased my shields so that they can mark their section of the road. I don't just, and disclaimer here, I don't sell shields to anybody. I sell them to municipalities, venues, chambers of commerce, community interests. I don't sell them to individuals. So the most recent shield that I sold, I believe, I just gave one to the Route 66 State Park in Missouri. I just gave some out to Illinois. The best one I gave recently was to Marshfield, Missouri, which recently rediscovered their section of Route 66, Business 66, through their courthouse square. I've sold them to Williams, Arizona, Oldham County, Texas. There's been a few more. Tucumcari, New Mexico. I've sold them all over the place. So that's how I can be in so many places at once. They're using my shields.
So you're not laying them down. It's the local county DPW who's laying them down?
I used to. Yeah, no, I used to do it. I was doing it kind of, under the shroud of anonymity for a couple of years until it came out. But I was doing them, little ones. They were more seen as Easter eggs than anything else for the people that were trying to explore 66, because you got to understand, back then, as recent as 10 years ago, or maybe even 8 years ago, we didn't have these awesome satellite images and maps on our phones to follow. That didn't happen until probably about 2011 or 12, and then later, actually 15, when they became actually useful. So to me, one of the reasons why I did it, I'll tell you why I started doing the shields. The reason why I started doing the shields is because I can remember the first time going out in like 2002 or 3 or something, trying to find Route 66. I didn't know at the time that there was books on it and that there was maps on it. I was just following old literal road maps trying to find it. And then, at that time there was no GPS guidance or anything. So I can remember crossing over into the Kansas state line from Missouri. I just happened to be on Route 66 and coming across one of Dean Walker's Route 66 shields painted on the section of Kansas right there before you come into Galena. And I saw that, and man, it rolled out like a welcome mat.
Yeah.
And it was such a great feeling that I wanted lots of people to have that same feeling.
Yep.
And that's what really inspired me to start doing the shields. And you can't steal a shield. You can steal a sign.
Do you have a memorable shield that you must have laid down somewhere on the road?
Oh, I have a bunch. Man. Probably the one that's most iconic is it's the largest Route 66 shield painted in Missouri. And I would say that it's probably the second largest Route 66 shield painted on a road in the world. And that is right in front of Gary Turner's, now Barb Turner's place there at Paris Springs Junction. But it measures about 18 to 19 feet wide. It's a huge shield. And there's a video of that. But Gary Turner, most of the listeners should know who Gary Turner is. He was the ambassador of Route 66 that created Paris Springs Junction, the iconic Sinclair station. He just wanted to be over the top with everything. He wanted to be the biggest and the best and the most popular, which he did a really darn good job of doing that. And so he found out that I was painting the shields. And he goes, "Oh, can you paint me a shield, Rich?" I said, "Sure." Now, at the time, I was using little 24-inch shields, which, in person seems adequate enough. But when you're driving by, you hardly even see it. You blink and you miss it. But so I went out there and I painted a 24-inch shield for him. He was so happy. He was so happy that for weeks on end, and Gary and I weren't quite friends at this point. We were just acquaintances, but we became really tight friends after this. And he would call me every day and say, "Gosh, Rich, I had these people pose with the shield, and they had their cars parked." He goes, "But I need a bigger one." I said, "Okay, Gary." So because of Gary, I developed a bigger one that was about 42 or 43 inches. So it was about twice the size. And he, again, fell in love with that shield. And that shield I would go and do at special places, like I did them at Harley and Annabelle's and Laurel Cane's. At the Afton station. I did them quite a few places, but not as many as the 24 inches. They take a lot more paint and a lot more patience. But the reason why the giant shield that people would see there today, the one that takes up the entire road, both lanes, the reason that one came to be is because Gary, he's just like, "Rich, I want one that takes up the entire road." And I'm like, "Oh, man, Gary, come on. I don't know how to do that." Well, Gary passed in January of 15, and it really weighed on me. I said, man, he really wanted that. And so together with a friend of mine named John Furr, we put together basically a mosaic or a puzzle that you could assemble this giant shield out of, and we laser cut all the pieces to make it happen. And I crowdfunded the effort, actually, and that's important to mention because I do a lot of crowdfunding projects. The Route 66 community paid for that project. They paid for the paint, they paid for my fuel, they paid for the actual giant stencil, and they did so blindly. That's how great this community is. That's why I love the Route 66 family. I never told anybody what I was going to do. I just said, "I need your support. I need your money. I promise you this will get done in September, October of 2018, but you just got to trust me." And I raised the exact amount of money to get it done. It was like $1,000.
Good for you.
But I just know that Gary's looking down and smiling on that shield. I mean, you can't miss it. You can see it from
what a
Google
great story.
Yeah.
I was out there this past summer and I met George, and he showed me a picture of the shield with Gary's name on it. And he started to chuckle and he said, "There's a story behind that." And I didn't get the exact story, but I always wanted to ask you that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Rich, all the work you do for preserving and promoting Route 66 is like a full-time job. What is your everyday full-time job?
So in order of priority, or my everyday full-time job. So I own a paving company in St. Louis, and I have been blessed with such a great staff. that they pretty well take care of day-to-day operations without any sort of major interaction from me. In fact, I work from home in this studio right here, and rarely ever do I go into my office, which is now located about 5 miles from my home. But yeah, they make it possible for me. I've got some really good people.
So you're a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Why do some businesses thrive and others don't on the Mother Road? What's the secret?
I did a presentation on this back at the Miles of Possibility conference in, was it 17 or so? It's been a couple of years, but I call it the yellow brick road syndrome. Your heart has to be in it for the right reasons. Otherwise, the road is going to flush you out. And I don't want to speak to people that had hardships this year, because this year was unique. With all the COVID stuff happening, this year was a real trial for most people. And I just can't imagine what they're going through. But why it works for some people and doesn't for others is because the yellow brick road syndrome takes over, and people without any sort of foresight get it into their imagination that they're going to become rich on Route 66, owning a business. And it's not about getting rich. It's about sustainability, and it's about enriching your life and the lives of others. That's the Route 66 experience. Whether you're a roadie or you're a business owner, you're never going to get rich on Route 66 unless you own a big Texan. That's it. I mean, I can't think of any other business on 66 that gets rich. And this highway has always been about evolution. It's always been about rolling with the punches and adapting to change, adapting to consumers' needs, adapting to trends. And Route 66 will always continue to be that way. And the people that can roll with the punches, so to speak, they're the ones that survive. The people that have a vivid passion for this road that never dies, an undying passion, they're the ones that survive, like the Dawn Welches and those types. Pete Adams, the former owner of the Ariston, 3 generations owning that restaurant. They moved that restaurant from the original alignment of 66 to the latter alignments of Route 66. That's a real testament of passion and commitment.
Right. And the story behind the Rock Cafe is incredible. It's an earlier episode we released, and Dawn tells the whole story, how it burned down and she built it up from the ashes 1 year to the day. Rich, you've been very active in promoting and preserving Route 66. Can you tell us a story about your very first preservation act?
The Gasconade Bridge would be the first mission I think I ever took on, and we're still continuing the fight to this day. That was probably besides going out and painting the shields, that was probably the first real preservation mission. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about politics. I learned a lot about engineering and just people in general, community. And to this day, we're still fighting to save that bridge, and we are winning at this point. It looked really doubtful nearly a year ago. They basically gave us a deadline of, I think it was end of April or early May, and they were going to let the contract to demolish that bridge.
So tell my listeners the short version of the Gasconade Bridge.
So the Gasconade Bridge has been in existence since before Route 66 was an official highway. That bridge is located in Laclede County, Missouri, specifically Hazel Green, Missouri, and it's over the Gasconade River. It's just a mixed steel truss through steel truss bridge, has several different truss designs, and you used to see hundreds of them all over the state. Now you don't see hardly any of them because they've all been demolished and replaced. And they closed this bridge down in 2014 and struggled for a couple of years on how to restore that route. Now, since 2019, they built a new bridge to spur around it, but the state has somewhat of a policy. I'm going to say that somewhat. It's a loose policy on owning bridges that are not in use. They really don't want to own bridges that are not in use. And so they've been trying to demolish this bridge, even though it's nearly 100 years old. It was built in 1923. It predates Route 66 by nearly 4 years. And it's an important testament to our history and heritage in the Ozarks. So many stories revolve around this bridge, and so many stories continue to this day as people can actually still get out and walk on this bridge and touch the bridge and see the beautiful Gasconade River flow underneath it and smell the fresh air. It gets people out of their cars. They stop. And when they stop, they tell their friends, they spread the news on social media, they spend money at local communities. It's an important part of Route 66 that needs to remain, and we're fighting for it.
What would you say is one of your more successful preservation projects?
Well, in cooperation with some close friends of mine, the Painted Desert Trading Post is by far the most successful, and I got to give all of my partners in that lots of credit. I've got 8 other partners in that, and their spouses, actually. I don't want to discredit anybody because there's several spouses in there. So basically there's probably about 11 other partners in there that are very supportive of the Painted Desert Trading Post. It's been wildly successful. That building, I can assure you, for the listeners out there, you need to go out and Google Painted Desert Trading Post in Arizona. I can assure you that if we had not have intervened by purchasing that property and basically propping that building back up and restoring it for the most part, it would have fallen down by now. I can guarantee you that.
So, Rich, tell my listeners a little bit about the Painted Desert for those who may not know about the history of Doc and everything.
The Painted Desert Trading Post was established, and I'm going to use loose numbers because we don't know entirely. We haven't found ironclad records yet, but it was established in the 40s. It was an outpost established by Dotch Windsor. It's a very peculiar name, but he was a cattle rancher, and he wanted to put a trading post out there, and it's just on the east side of the Petrified National Forest. And it was a gas station. It was a curio shop. They sold rugs and jewelry and pottery and all sorts of stuff. And they also had fuel. It went dormant when the interstate came in. And actually, I think it was a newer alignment of 66 that later turned into I-40. But they got bypassed, I believe, in the late 50s to early 60s. And at that point, they just had to hang it up. But Joy Nevin was a young lady that married Dotch Windsor after he had divorced his original wife, Alberta, and they had a child out there. They actually lived out there in the trading post full time. Her daughter is still alive and has actually been out to the trading post within the last year to see it, and she recounted all sorts of stories about it. We've got a website because it's worth going and browsing the photos and the history. We got a lot of notable people involved in that project. But what we set out to do, because we knew it was falling down, so what would happen is over the last 15 years, cattle have been allowed to migrate into this area and walk around the trading post. Just that act alone, with them walking around the trading post, caused enough damage where the foundation eroded and rolled out from underneath the trading post, causing the corners of the building to slump over. After the building lost its roof, then the structure started to go. So we spent a lot of money and a lot of time shoring up that building, raising it up slowly but surely. And we have some videos on that. We actually show a time-lapse video of us raising the building up. It's really cool to see. It looks like the building's alive. And then establishing and pouring a new foundation underneath of it to make sure that the building stays as long as possible.
What a great act of preservation. Now, as a part owner of the Painted Desert, what is your ultimate goal?
The consensus between my partners and I is just to get it restored to a point that best tells the story of the trading post. We'll also have an informative kiosk, like an interpretive kiosk inside of the trading post so that people can come visit. We just want to make sure that future generations of roadies and tourists have the ability to come out and see this old relic for what it looked like, say, during the 1970s period, after it experienced a little bit of decay and being orphaned out there in the middle of the desert. We're not ever going to reopen it. It's never going to have a business. Dotch, Windsor, and Joy Nevin had a hard enough time out there because they had to generate their own electricity. They had to pump their own water right there from a well. They were totally self-sustenant at that location. There was no utilities ever brought in there. So we're not going to open anything, but we want it to be available for people to come and touch and feel and see and experience it.
Now, is this something that roadies can actually visit today?
Yeah. Now there is a locked gate. We do have the premises protected in conjunction with several other properties out there. It's kind of a collective. There's one gate that serves many interested property owners out there. So, but there's a helpful sign once you get to the gate, and it's not hard to find the place. We're just off of exit 320 off of an I-40, which is called Pinta Road. We're north of the interstate about a mile. But there's a sign there that gives you my number or a phone number of one of the other co-op members. And following a few brief steps, which will take you off about 3 to 15 minutes, will gain you access to the gate and allow you to get out to the trading post, and will allow you to drive a really cool section of actual Route 66 pavement that goes back all the way to the 50s.
Tell us about your truck, which I've seen on YouTube, especially the hood of your Route 66 ride.
Yeah, so I bought the adventure truck. It's a 1994 Chevy Blazer. It was purchased out of a farm field in Sullivan, Missouri, just about a quarter mile off 66. It had sat in a farm field for, I think, 4 years is what the previous owner told me, just sitting there rotting. And I was inspired by Jim Ross and Jerry McClanahan in one of their videos called Bones of the Old Road. And if you don't have that video, you should try to find a copy before there are none. I don't think there's any in production, but if you find one, you should get it. Bones of the Old Road, where they took on one of my favorite sections of Route 66 called La Bajada Hill. They took on that old section of Route 66 National Old Trails Highway with a 85 S10 Blazer. And so I was also inspired to purchase that Blazer by Bob Waldmeyer, because he used to take his little hippie van, his Volkswagen hippie bus, up and down 66, and he lived out of it. So,
right.
And I did my first big trip by myself, a research trip in 2010. I bought that Blazer specifically for the task because I wanted to kind of live out of it and basically feel the road and live on the road and be one with the road, but be able to tackle all the elements. So that's where the Blazer came from. And I've been modifying it and enhancing it ever since, and put a new engine in it back in 2017. Right now, the Blazer's a little under the weather. It's out in my shop. It's got some issue with either a fuel injector or ignition problem, but I'm going to get to the bottom of that here shortly. But it's been a great truck. The hood, when I first got the truck, I painted the hood black and put a Route 66 shield, just like the ones I paint on the highway, identical size and everything. I put that on the hood, and then I started getting signatures. Now, that was inspired by Gary Turner, because Gary Turner, if you used to visit him, he would have tried to sell you a David Wickline Images of 66 book, and he would have told you, well, on your trip while touring Route 66, be sure to get signatures of all the people that you meet. And so I started doing something similar with the hood of my truck. I started getting signatures of a lot of the iconic roadies that were instrumental in promoting Route 66, and a lot of the business owners that had committed their passion to Route 66. And the very first signature was Rich Henry. I camped out in front of his house. I was there at like 6:30 in the morning, and he comes outside and he's like, "What are you doing?" I need you to sign my hood. You and I have already met, but I don't expect you to remember me, but I need you to sign my hood. And he's like, "Oh, okay, weirdo." And so he was the first one back in November of 2010.
And where is that hood now? Is it still on the truck, or do you have it?
No, the hood is in my studio. I'm looking right at it. You can't see it, but it's I keep it inside in an air conditioned space away from sunlight. the last time the hood adorned the truck was probably in 2015 or 2014. And I took it down to the Kingman, Arizona festival. And I'm just so scared of putting the hood on the truck.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of people on there that aren't with us anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
the signature, the hood is just full of signatures. But every once in a while, I have people come to my studio and I have them sign the hood. But I am thinking of trying to get out there in 21 because there's a lot of people that deserve to be on that hood that aren't. And I need to go and see them and capture their signatures. I just haven't quite figured out how to do that safely because one bird dropping, it's over with.
That's good luck, huh?
Yeah.
Who's your most cherished signature you have so far on that hood?
Gary Turner is by default because he was like my best friend on 66. But Ernie Edwards, the old coot, he owned the Pig Hip restaurant there in Bardwell, Illinois.
Yeah.
And he was just such a character. And I drove out to Lincoln, Illinois when I learned that he was sick and was in the nursing home. And he and I had a pretty good rapport. I'd actually made a photograph for him, and he actually had that hung up over his bed in his nursing home, the photo I made for him. But he wheelchaired out to my truck on, I'm not kidding, a 95-degree day. It was horrible. And he wheelchaired out there and signed that hood the best he could. And it was, the sun was beating down on that hood. It was so hot you couldn't touch it. Like I had to get a wet washcloth and cool the hood off so he wouldn't burn himself signing it. He was a really neat guy, and that's probably the one that is one of the most cherished.
Well, let's talk about your role as the Route 66 president of the Route 66 Missouri Association. What is a typical week like for you as a president of a association of Missouri?
I just take every day as it comes. I do that with everything: family, personal life, business life, Route 66. Every day, I can't tell you what I'm doing tomorrow. I can't tell you what I'm doing the day after that. But I just take every day as it comes, and I focus on the priorities as needed. And again, just like my business life, I'm extremely thankful that I have a multitude of strong board members and directors on the Route 66 Association that take their jobs seriously. And we're all volunteers. None of us are paid. They take their duties and their roles very seriously, as if they were getting paid, and they do a phenomenal job. I basically just kind of weigh in and make some decisions here and there and provide some creative guidance, but got an excellent events committee and membership. Everybody's great, and they're doing a great job now. Yeah.
And what are some of your annual events there in Missouri when things are normal conditions?
So we do motor tours, and we still have one this year. It was very successful. We do a motor tour. We usually do 1 or 2 neon sign restorations a year, and we did manage to get one done this year for the Red Cedar Inn in Pacific, Missouri. It's just been a lot of preservation and promotion, but we did start adding in other events. Last year, we had a holiday party, a Christmas party, and that was well attended, and we had a lot of fun.
Cool.
Unfortunately, I pulled the trigger on canceling it this year because of all the COVID regulations. Not because of COVID itself, but because of the regulations.
The gathering, sure. That's understandable, right?
It was just going to make it unpleasant. But we're talking about having like a spring gala where people get together, maybe a dance or something, maybe having 2 motor tours a year. My events committee is really committed to seeing that this association is known for memorable events.
Now let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, which is incredible. How many videos would you say you have on that?
Not enough. I feel lazy, man.
I've been trying to watch them all prior to me scheduling this talk with you. And you have one of them up there, the most amazing views of Route 66, has well over 800,000 views. And I just enjoy having that video playing in my office. It's like an hour long and just all aerial footage. Tell us a little bit about that video.
So myself and my other creative partner in that particular video, Jamie Jessup, we actually set out on a mission. It took us about, I think it was 2.5 years of footage from going back and forth up and down Route 66, because you can't see everywhere in the daylight all the time. So, but our mission was to capture some of, and I say some of, the most amazing views of Route 66. I get a lot of criticism because I missed this or missed that. I didn't miss it, just didn't put it in there. It was a budget. I mean, we had a budget to work within to make that video, and it's just about an hour long. And I think Jamie, before we started it, I think all of his hair was pretty dark black. But after we were finished, there was a lot of gray. It was a tall order producing that video. But the mission was to create a video without a lot of words, just allow the viewer to be taken in by some of the creative music that you don't hear mainstream. We didn't use any typical tracks, 50s pop or nothing. We used creative music from individuals, mostly out of licensing, and because we wanted people to create something for us, and they did. But not a lot of words, just so that people from all over the world could watch that video and not feel left out. I wanted the video to appear equal to all viewers. There's very, very few spoken words in that video. I think the longest scene is where we're talking with Angel Delgadillo, and that's it.
And you use drones to shoot that, correct?
Yeah, we use a lot of drone footage. I'd say it's not all drone footage, but I'd say probably 70% of the footage is aerial. Yeah. And
how much skill did that require?
That was taken on by myself, another pilot, and a little bit of Jamie Jessup. And I think we used 4 different drones. We did use 4 different drones to compile all that footage. And that was all compiled, now that I think about it, between 2014 and 2015. So, yeah, there was about 4 years there.
So, Rich, other than the drones, what other type of technology do you use nowadays to explore Route 66?
I'm still doing things the way I've always done it, the old school way, where I have a map that I created for Route 66. It's on a laptop. I throw the laptop in my adventure truck. I follow the map, and mostly what I'm led by is the desire to find new segments of Route 66 that are undiscovered, and which most people don't realize is out there. It's kind of a road geek thing, but yeah, I still use the drones, especially if I'm looking at a situation where I don't want to trespass on somebody's property, but I want to get an aerial image of a bridge or a culvert or something or a section of road. I'll use the drones for that. Probably my best tool that I use, that I love the most, is my one wheel. It's my little electric skateboard / hoverboard.
Oh, okay.
Because it weighs like 25 pounds. It stays with me at all times. I can throw it over a fence and just boogie on down a gravel road or a dirt road or a paved road and find what I'm looking for. But Jamie and I have talked about doing a follow-up video of Most Amazing Views and breaking it up into 8 states, 8 different videos. And maybe one day we'll get to do that. I wish we could do that. He's got some physical ailments right now preventing him from doing that. But Lord knows I've got enough footage to make it happen, and could go out and get more anytime.
That would be really cool. Rich, in your travels along the Mother Road, what is one thing that most people don't know about Route 66 as you meet them?
So the number one thing that people don't know about Route 66, I can answer this easily, is that they don't realize that Route 66 is comprised of multiple roads, multiple pathways, multiple alignments, and that it evolved from existing pavements in most cases. The Planning Commission, the Highway Department, during the 1920s just didn't say, hey, we're going to build this road called Route 66, and then they built it. That never happened. That never happened with any road during that time. They took already existing roads and converted them over to carry Route 66. That's the number one thing, because people will say, back in 2010, I drove all Route 66, and I did it in 7 days. Impossible. You did not do that. That never happened, and you never drove all Route 66 because you can't drive all Route 66. Now, I don't give them too much grief. I just nod and say, yeah, okay, and let them have their enjoyment. I don't want to steal their thunder, but that's the probably biggest misconception, is that most people don't realize there are multiple alignments of Route 66, and therefore, when they do Route 66 and they go back and someone says, hey, did you go to Santa Fe? And they're like, well, wait a second, I didn't go to Santa Fe. I went to Moriarty and then to Albuquerque. Well, you missed a big section of Route 66. So I want to point that out for anybody who's interested in doing a Route 66 trip. Make sure you do some planning. There are multiple roads and multiple alignments. And yes, it will take you longer than a week to do it.
Rich, what is one of your most cherished souvenirs you have in all of your travels of Route 66?
Boy, I wish I'd known that. I got so much cool stuff I've picked up off of Route 66. Just off the top of my head, I guess I got some pottery shards that from the Native Americans that occupied the area surrounding the Painted Desert Trading Post. Cool. Like, we're talking pottery shards, hundreds, maybe thousands of years old. Really nothing to do with Route 66, but it was just cool to find that kind of archaeological treasure out there. Other than that, I've got signs and stuff that I found. I got one sign back here in the corner that it just says DU. It's behind that gas pump. It just says DU, but it was a Dunlop sign that someone had cut up and converted to another kind of sign. And I found it on an orphaned section of Route 66 in Santa Rosa, New Mexico. It's just stuff like that. I find that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's really cool because it tells a story. Or even this one's really neat because this is called Z4 gasket sealer. It's this little glass bottle. It's really meaningless to most people, but the memory that accommodates this little glass bottle, that's what it's about. I happened on this bottle outside of Grants, New Mexico, looking for an old section of Route 66. And I found this bottle, and along with it, you could tell somebody had to rebuild their engine on the side of the road. Yeah, there was piston rings, there was head gasket, there was pieces of a water pump. Somebody had to rebuild their engine on the side of the road, probably an Okie. Yeah. In transit from Oklahoma to California. Who knows the story, but just things like that to provoke your imagination. Right. Those are the kinds of finds I enjoy the most. Yeah.
So we spoke about your YouTube channel. Tell us a little bit about Hooked on Route 66, the website that you have.
So hookedonroute66.com is a website I established designed to try to spotlight some of my best moments and my best promotions on Route 66, different videos and different missions we've taken on. I haven't been doing a whole lot on there since I become president of the association, because a lot of what I do in the association is on their website and on their Facebook page. There's just been such a movement to social media that it's left websites kind of not as relevant as they used to be. Yeah. People need to do them. They need to do blog sites because that holds information that doesn't get, turned over as much as what you find on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that.
Are there any other projects near and dear to your heart that you want to share with our listeners?
The Shamrock Motor Court is one that I've been fighting for about 2 years now. The Shamrock Motor Court has the potential to be Missouri's version of the Blue Swallow. Yeah. It's this quaint little horseshoe-shaped motor court. It had neon all in the dormers, neon all in the soffits. It's got about 10 to 12 units. The people that ran the Shamrock Motor Court. They bought it when it was still virtually brand new. It was built in 48, 49. The Weilands purchased it in 53. They raised a family there. They ran that place until Mr. Weiland died in 2009. And it's still in the Weiland family. And they're desperately looking for someone to purchase this property at the bargain price of $95,000.
Wow.
But you got to be, your heart has to be in it. You can't just buy it and knock it down for the property. You got to, that's the condition, is that you got to buy it to restore it and to put it back into use on 66. And that's what the community of Sullivan, Missouri wants to see from this place. And you'll never find another motor court like this on Route 66. It's built from stone, and it has certain design elements within the stonework, like such as sunbursts and things like that. That's my mission right now, is to get somebody with a passion for Route 66, or someone who wants to start an Airbnb or something, to purchase this place. We've done a lot of work to it to keep it preserved and to keep it from going anywhere, but we're going to have to put a roof on it pretty soon. But the Weilands are really at wit's end. They really want to see this property change hands to somebody else. So that's the one right there, the Shamrock Motor Court, Sullivan, Missouri. Somebody needs to desperately buy that and take it on and restore it.
Yeah, beautiful property. I was out there this past summer and I drove around there. Has there been anyone with any serious interest at such a low price?
I mean, if I was a single guy and didn't have a bunch of kids, I would have already bought it and started doing the work. But we did manage to raise interest from 2 or 3 parties as a result of a work weekend that we held out there just about a month ago in early November. We had about 20 of us all go out there and clean the place up, and we did a lot of work. We actually did some structural work too to kind of strengthen the building. And as a result, because of all that interest, people seeing it, there were several parties that came forward. Now, I don't know what's happening with that, but as far as I know, the property's still available for $95,000.
Wow.
And the property's worth that. Without the building, the property itself is worth that.
And just the story behind the buildings there. It has so much potential. Exactly.
Sure. And all the Weilands, the sons, there's 3 sons that were born to the Weilands. They're all still alive. They still all have pictures. They still all have their memories and everything. And oddly enough, we found a lot of the neon from the neon sign that was scrapped back in the 80s. We found a bunch of the neon out there during this work session. So that was a cool archaeological find that's going to help somebody out. It's going to help somebody out in recreating that neon sign.
Wow. Now, when I was teaching in New Jersey before I retired, I had a picture of that sign on my screensaver. And I remember when it used to pop up, the kids in the class used to say, "Oh, that's a really neat sign." So, yeah.
Yep, the Shamrock Motor Court. It's got a cool sign. I mean, it doesn't anymore. They trashed the sign, but the postcards and stuff still depict it the way it was. Yeah. And I'm telling you, somebody's going to buy that, and they're going to be the next Mary Beth Babcock.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know who Mary Beth Babcock is, you need to look her up. She's in Tulsa. She's amazing.
So, Rich, why is Route 66 so special to you?
Route 66 is special to me because it embodies some of our earliest history. It embodies Americana, the American dream. It shows tribulations of some and triumphs of others. Movie stars took this road from Chicago to Los Angeles. The Okies and the Arkies, the people that were faced adverse conditions from the Dust Bowl, they used the road to find a path to a better life. I mean, that's some of the earliest stuff. But then, seeing all the great cities and stuff that popped up along the way because it was a main thoroughfare, It was the main street of America. It just shows and demonstrates our history. A lot of it's still there. A lot of it's gone, but it continues to thrive. And that's the best part of it, is that it continues to evolve and continues to attract new businesses and new people and new tourists year after year after year. And it's just such a unique thing. It's kind of somewhat of like a segue into other historical highways that we have in this country that are just as intriguing. It's kind of the gateway drug for most other highways.
Well, Rich, it was such a pleasure talking with you. You are such a great promoter of Route 66, and I have to say, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us here today on the Route 66 podcast.
It's always a pleasure, Anthony. I appreciate it. Anytime you want to talk about Route 66, I would love to do it. I'm always available. And
where can our listeners find out more about Roamin Rich?
Well, probably the easiest way is to go on YouTube and they can search for Hooked on Route 66, or they can search for Roamin Rich, or they can find me on Facebook, any number of places by typing in Roamin Rich, and that's roaming without a G.
And we'll have links at route66podcast.com. There he is, Roamin Rich. Oh, I really enjoyed my talk with him. And all my Patreon supporters will hear an additional conversation with Rich, where he talks further about why the Missouri Highway Department asked him to remove the original custom-made Gary Turner Route 66 shield painted on the roadway outside of Gay Paris, his desire to become president of the Missouri Route 66 Association and how he seized the opportunity, and his thoughts on the closing of the Eat-Rite diner in St. Louis, Missouri. I encourage you to become a Patreon supporter, and maybe this month you can win a Route 66 wall calendar. Complete details at Route 66 Podcast or patreon.com. Just search up Route 66 Podcast once you're there. And now the trivia question for today's show. On the last episode, I featured Peter McDonald, just one of 5 surviving Navajo code talkers from World War II. Also on that show was a local realtor, Jackie Kellogg, who spoke about the origin of the Navajo code talkers along Route 66. Here's the question. How is Route 66 related to the Navajo code talkers and the efforts to restore the El Pueblo Motel in Flagstaff, Arizona? The El Pueblo was a Route 66 motel where the owner, Philip Johnson, met with and recruited many of the Navajo members in the area to serve in the U.S. Marines, who would eventually be considered for the code talkers. Of course, they didn't know it at the time when they signed up that they were being considered for this top secret military operation. Next time on the show, we're going to go to Amarillo and visit with Bob Crocodile Lyle. Here's a clip of my talk with artist Bob Lyle and the unique artistic opportunity he's created using the paint from the Cadillac Ranch in Amarillo, Texas.
Well, about 6 years ago, I was on the internet one day and I saw Fordite. And I thought, what in the world is that? Well, some guy went up into the old Ford paint plant on the River Rouge in Detroit, and where they used to hand spray all the panels for the cars, the good lacquer enamel built up 10, 12, 14 inches thick, overspray, and he got all that out of there and started making jewelry. Now, that had been done back in the 50s, but not commercially. Well, that's why I saw that, and I thought, if he can make jewelry out of paint from a Ford paint plant, maybe I can make it out of Cadillac paint. Well, you have to understand that the stuff they have is good lacquer and enamel. The stuff I have is Krylon and Walmart. And I sell it all over the world. And I do necklaces, bracelets, rings, earrings, bolo ties, all kinds of stuff. And I wear some of it. My wife looks like a walking billboard when we go out. It took off. I thought, well, when I first started doing it, I thought, well, I'll sell some of this to my roadie friends, and that'll be it. Well, then I've been featured on TV shows and newspapers and magazines, and they just keep selling. Like I say, it's world renowned.
That's Crocodile Lyle on the next episode of the Route 66 podcast. He talks about his earliest memories of Route 66, working as a car salesman most of his life, opening his art gallery, life as a scout leader, leading international Route 66 tours, and his newest four-legged companion at the art gallery. Let me know your favorite version of Route 66 and you can win a washable Route 66 face mask, maybe even one featuring your state preference on the mask itself. Simply visit Route 66 Podcast and click Send Voicemail tab on the right side of the page where you see the microphone. Please encourage anyone who's enrolled in school, grades K through college, ages 5 to 23, well, really any age if you're expecting to be in college later this year, to enter the scholarship program. And I encourage you to support both this podcast and the scholarship program by becoming a Patreon member. More information at patreon.com. Just search for Route 66 Podcast for a chance to win a Route 66 wall calendar and to hear the rest of my talk with Roamin Rich. Thank you for taking the journey with us here at the Route 66 Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Arno.